on to the latest episode of Deliverability.TV, B2B versus B2C Filtering with myself, Anthony Mitchell, Florian Fierker.
Hi Anthony.
Hello Florian.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Solingen. Welcome to Solingen, by the way.
Thank you. I really feel welcome actually.
Never said that.
And I don't want to keep him hanging on for too long. Our special guest today, Mo Zaman.
You can say Mo. Hi there, folks. Yep, Mo's fine. You can say Zaman as well. Yep, that means time in Arabic, for anyone that doesn't know.
Okay. How would you spell it?
Zaman.
Zaman.
As
Zaman.
in the man.
Okay.
Yeah, Zaman as in the man.
Okay.
I like that. That's you do your own marketing then, it sounds like. It's good.
Basically.
Good stuff. So how should we kick this off today? What's an email?
I think the idea behind that episode is if you send an email before the email is landing into the inbox or spam box or being blocked, there's some sort of filters in between. And there's a big difference between whether you send an email to a big infrastructure like a big ISP like Gmail, Yahoo, or no existing anymore, Oath, Hotmail, or if you send it to a B2B email address, normally using a security solution like whatever, CloudMark or something to protect the environment.
So yeah, I would say you're pretty much there. So an email security solution provider, the big ones, for example, are Mimecast, which is widely used. So one of the employees that I work for implemented Mimecast. The second biggest one I would say is Proofpoint, which, for example, Apple use in their filtering. Last I checked. And then we've got Barracuda. So those three I would say are the top ones. Mm-hmm. But they're basically providers that are gatekeepers of email. So for example, if we have our company, for example, Mimecast would be at the front of the door. So they would be the ones to either decide to accept the emails, reject it, or just basically not even do anything, just get rid of it. So they make the decision whether or not to pass it on to, whoever the hosted solution for email is, whether it's Microsoft, Google, Gmail, and others.
Yes, sir. And what would you say the biggest challenge is?
So the hardest part is delivery, trying to get that message first accepted and not rejected, because they have to accept it first and then pass it on to the hosted solution, whether it's Microsoft or Google. And depending on the policies and the rules that are in place, you could have the perfect content, follow all best practices, but because they have that one policy, that has identified you as sending spam because, you've sent too many messages or you haven't retried messages, then, you're never going to get through unless you contact that recipient or get that recipient to contact their IT provider or, their third party, whoever it is that manages Mimecast on their end, to update their policies. So having been a person that has administered Mimecast for an employer, it's hard, but it does work. It's hard in that trying to get the messages that you want accepted and the message that you don't want not accepted, because obviously we know phishing campaigns are quite prevalent. They use legitimate brands, content, HTML and so on.
Basically, keep trying is what I would say.
Never give up. We like that mentality. Good attitude. So how would you test that actually?
If we use the scenario, so if an email gets accepted, you would obviously have to ask the recipient for those headers, and they do have their X headers, which give you some information on why it was accepted. But obviously if an email is rejected, all you have is the bounce reason. And the bounce reason is pretty handy. Their English is pretty good. Their reasons are self-explanatory, and they also have their knowledge base, which is publicly accessible as well. So whatever the bounce code is, with whatever the reason is, you'll pretty much find it in their knowledge base. So then you can take some actions.
What kind of content is spammy? What should you avoid?
I would definitely say avoid link shorteners like bit.ly.
Okay.
Definitely don't include those, because obviously they're pretty much used in phishing campaigns and spam campaigns. Mm-hmm. Check that your image domain or your link domain isn't on any blacklists. Mm-hmm. So one tool that I like to use is mail-tester.com. Mm-hmm. So you can use it. That's a free online tool that you can send your campaign to or an email to, and it'll basically generate these results, whether it's signed by DKIM, SPF, all the things that we would expect when sending emails to the B2C providers. So it's a good tool to use. So I think the main 2 points are the link domain, make sure it's not blacklisted anywhere.
Okay.
And make sure you don't use link shorteners.
In the end, the interesting point is when we think about ISPs like Gmail, they mainly focus on reputation, which means as long as you have a good user base and as long as people like the content, open click email, the content doesn't matter too much. But the same emails then struggle at B2B filters because they don't have the reputation part. How would you recommend someone having a really good reputation and struggle with the content? What would you recommend him to do?
So those email security solutions do use a form of reputation. It might be their own databases that they build up, or it might be third-party databases. For example, they might use data from SpamCop, SpamHouse in their decision-making process. But I think typically it's their own. It's based on their own data and what they see.
What you see is what you get.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I guess they've all got different metrics, and where you could be a villain in one, hero in the other. In the email world.
Any question you have to us?
Why do you have the moustache?
Yes, there we go. He's been called out on it now.
Some people, I did it in one of the first episodes and thought one day it needs to come back. Without, it looks like that. So what's better, with moustache or without?
I think the moustache, definitely.
There we go, yeah.
Okay.
You can get away with it.
And are you working more with the B2B part or the B2C part?
Split, I think, is like 70-30.
Okay.
But we do have clients sending to B2B domains, and these domains, again, it's hard to get emails delivered unless you, for example, know the contact.
Contacting the person, whether it's the recipient directly or the IT department at that company, and saying, I have legitimate reason to send your emails. They're not getting through. People are complaining. Please do something.
From your perspective, what's the most important difference in terms of how B2B handle email and how B2C handle email?
I would definitely say it's on the technical side. So it's on the SMTP side. So with Mimecast, for example, if you know a domain uses Mimecast, it's to make sure that your MTA retries emails. Because if you don't retry emails, then you're pretty much showing behavior of what a legitimate spammer would do, because they wouldn't retry their campaigns. They would just send them out one time and be done.
You talk about grey listing.
The grey listing is a temporary method used to defend users of email against spam, and it's basically the middle ground between an outright, block listing or blacklisting and accepting emails. So if you see a reason that says you've been grey listed, then make sure you retry sending, because it can get through.
Oh, what about your list of questions, Anthony?
List of questions? Yeah, I think we've gone through all of them. You stole my thunder. No, I think we've covered a lot already. What would you say is a typical challenge that perhaps a sender faces?
It's a lower delivery rate when sending to B2B domains, because some of them use old technologies, some of them use email hosted solution, security solutions like Mimecast and others that are basically too strict. But they probably have a business reason to be too strict, because they're seeing loads of phishing campaigns and spam campaigns being sent to them.
Absolutely.
For the B2B part, is how much control does a domain have using that solution?
So as a sender, you literally have no control whatsoever. You can follow best practices, and for one policy or two policies or a combination, or your email could get rejected. But on the other side, as a receiver, you have very defined controls. So someone that's administered Mimecast, you can basically create many rules that looks at many things and give you more protection than you would get when using Microsoft Outlook as a business email solution, or even Gmail. But I think Gmail is actually pretty good when it comes to filtering versus B2B email hosted solution providers. Microsoft, in my opinion, isn't that great from what I've seen and looked at, but Gmail is pretty good.
What's your opinion on Spam Assassin?
I think that last is it all. It's so
you triggered off that laugh as well, and that's not just because of Florence and stuff.
No, that's fine.
So I've worked, when I first came across Spam Assassin, it was many years ago. And back then, they didn't really tailor it. They just implemented what it was out of the box. And that's not the best thing to do. Because Spam Assassin has many rules that basically people create. And it's open source. So people can create rules, upload them. And you could have something that is really stupid that gives you a really bad result. Which obviously isn't going to be the case when you're sending to, Google and Microsoft. So it depends. It's I would say it's good to use and see what the issues are, but then some of those issues aren't that great. So again, mail-tester is another tool that I like to use. I'm pretty sure it uses Spam Assassin.
I'm a big fan of that as well.
yeah.
Do you have a premium account, or do you get free tries on that a day?
It's free one. I don't pay for anything yet. Well, I do pay for something.
Don't pay for anything.
What's your opinion on something like the idea to have one global value for reputation like sender score? Does it make sense, or is it an outdated idea?
Again, it's good and bad. So the good is that you get some insight, but obviously, you get some insight, but it's not necessarily the same as Google's reputation or Mimecast's reputation databases and so on. So it gives you some insight, and I guess it's useful if you're on a dedicated IP and not useful when you're on a shared IP.
Talking about IPs,
I was just about to say.
Yeah, then you.
IPv6, where's that gone? Do we even care about it anymore? Is it going to be? Some of the ISPs have adopted it. How would that impact?
I think it was something that was big, and
I think
the fuss about it. Now all of a sudden it's died down.
What about the B2B filtering systems?
So reputation plays a part, but I would say it's not as big of a part compared to Google, for example. So the things that play a part are the IP address that you're sending from, the recipient from, or the from domain that you're using, the mail from domain that you're using, and obviously all of the other policies and stuff that look at content, link image domains, URLs, and so on.
So my favorite question is, what things you hate most about emails?
It's Microsoft filtering. I have, obviously, I'm sure as many others have mailboxes, the Microsoft domains, and their filtering is just horrendous.
People from Microsoft listening to this?
Yes, improve your phishing detection, please, because as someone that looks at email.
I love your honesty.
I think we should be a bit positive as well. What do you like most about email?
The job is, every day is different.
Okay.
Every day, you're dealing with issues, you're helping clients, but it's quite special when you give them some advice. They're hesitant at first, but when they take it on board, they come back and say, we're sending less emails, but we're generating more revenue.
Well said. And I'm thinking of a weird question now. What do you think about the future of email?
I think the future of email is probably not going to be that different than it is now. But I think it will get more complicated. If we look back, in the last 10 years, that we didn't have reputation systems, and
in order to be successful, it will help. But I think it will just get more complicated.
And how many years email will die? That's the last question. I just need a number. I don't need an explanation. Just a number.
No, I want the number and the explanation. Okay. How is it going to end? Like, is there going to be a big bang on the MTA or something?
I would say maybe let's see, 20 years time.
20 years. Okay.
I love that. Just like that.
I love it. And the explanation, fine.
I think explanation is technology will become far superior, where basically they don't need people. Okay. So it's up to the machines to decide what happens, and they might decide email is useless. It might be something like Google, the glasses that Google made.
That's it, and they get a notification and they say, instead of you got an email, then I haven't thought this through.
I actually like the explanation. One day the machines will decide email is useless.
But someone's always got to tune the machine.
So I need to check for a new job the last 10 years of my business life. Good.
I think the machines will be checking on the humans.
Crazy.
Or they will decide that I'm useless as well now.
I suppose someone's got to make the coffee. You know. On that note, thanks a lot, Mo. I really appreciate the insights and the predictions of the future and how email will end.
Yeah.
Thanks, Florian, for your contribution, and thanks everyone for listening and watching. Stay tuned. Thanks, Mo.
Thank you. Take care.
You got a beautiful chin. You got beautiful skin. You got a beautiful face. You got taste. You got beautiful eyes. You got beautiful thighs. You got a lot without a doubt. But I'm thinking about blowing you out. 'Cause you won't stop talking.